Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Paul Thomas Anderson film, Phantom Thread. Paul Thomas Anderson, he's known for doing films like Boogie Nights, The Master, Inherent Vice, Punch Drunk Love, um, There Will Be Blood. He's done tons of films that people really recognize him for. He's gotten Oscar attention in the past, more so for some of his older work. I would say There Will Be Blood was kind of his last really big Oscar attention movie. The Master got attention with its performances, but it was mostly There Will Be Blood that kind of got noticed for like its filmmaking techniques and stuff like that. But in Phantom Thread, this is kind of the latest Oscar buzz Paul Thomas Anderson film since There Will Be Blood. This film is about a dressmaker, roughly around like the 30s and 40s, I would say, if I were to name a time period for this movie. And he's a dressmaker. He makes dresses for royal families, makes dresses for people who are going out to really special occasions and really need a really nice dress to wear for that event. So he mostly works with women most of the time. But the film kind of takes a turn of events when this dressmaker, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, meets a woman that he's really attracted to. They start seeing each other romantically, and as like most of his clients, as most of the women that he meets in his life, she wants a dress for herself, just like all these other women are that he makes dresses for. But as the two of them get closer and they start to learn more about each other and learn to see, more of each other on a personal level, this woman starts to realize that this dressmaker has a very weird and unique routine. He doesn't like it when things are kind of loud and broken and kind of interfere with his daily schedule. He likes to draw a lot. He likes to do a lot of things to help him prep to make dresses and so forth. So once his routine is kind of broken and interfered with, he kind of goes off in a tangent and disappears for a while. It's one of those things where once his day gets ruined, it is ruined. There's no backtracking anything. He cannot focus on anything. And so this is something that this woman has to learn very quickly, as that this guy has a routine and that it can't be broken. Things have to be done his way, otherwise things will not get done. So there obviously right away there's tons of problems with this relationship, but there's tons of things that are right about it. When she does catch him in a romantic mood, when she catches him in at a time where he's planning on having a romantic evening with her and so forth. Obviously things go great there, but it's one of those movies where she loves this guy so much she really wants to get to know him, but there's so many problems along the way. Like a broken routine can ruin him. He doesn't like being surprised a lot. So there's just so many things that this woman has to work around with to make this relationship work. And this guy really wants to be able to make dresses his entire life. So obviously there's that whole thing there with him always working with women and him being always around, attractive women and so forth. So really his job is kind of everything to him. So it's one of those films where this guy really has to kind of question, how important is his job? Does he have time for a relationship? Can he commit to one? Can he kind of break his routine every once in a while to be able to pursue a relationship and so forth? So this film asks all these questions, and it's all done over the course of the film Phantom Thread. So overall, guys, I really enjoyed this film. I don't think it's Paul Thomas Anderson's best film, but I think it's a really well-made film. It's probably one of his better films in quite some time. I kind of liked the film The Master. I know some people really didn't like it. It was really too different for some people. I would say this is probably one of his better films since The Master. I would say Boogie Nights and Punch Drunk Love are probably my two favorite films from him thus far. I haven't seen all his films yet, but I really do enjoy Phantom Thread. It's a very enjoyable Paul Thomas Anderson film. So for my positives and negatives of this movie, I like how Paul Thomas Anderson continues to work with film. He's not big on working on digital film yet. He does maintain a film grain look over the course of this film. You can definitely tell that this was not shot digitally. Anything regarding converting this over to digital to make it work in certain movie theaters, obviously that was done probably in post production at some point. But this film does maintain a film grain look. It does look like it was shot on film, whether you do see it in IMAX or in 30 millimeter or 70 millimeter or whatever theaters are showing in your area that would show film grain the best and their film reel. Paul Thomas Anderson does maintain that film grain look, and it's really cool to watch. There's not a lot of films or filmmakers that choose to work in that style anymore. I also like Daniel Day-Lewis's unique character in this film. He really does play a unique character. It's a very unique and different individual. He really is different. He really does play this character in a way that once his schedule is broken, if you interfere with it in any way, if you do anything that interferes in the slight possible way, the man cannot focus and work on that day. Really kind of a unique character for him. Definitely not, it's one of those films where I know in the past he kind of does something really out there to prepare for a role. I almost kind of wonder what he did to prepare for this one. I don't know if he learned about dressmaking and so forth, or if he learned about people who had routines and if they were really famous, how they handled that. What did they do when their routine got broken and so forth. So, just a really unique character. I liked this character that he played in this movie. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but Vicky Krieps, who plays the love interest in this film, really was intrigued by her character. I really kind of felt for her at times where she's really struggling with this relationship. She really wants to get to know this guy. You really kind of want her to succeed and get the dress that she wants from this guy and so forth. So I was really invested in her character. She did a great job, and I think she is nominated for an Oscar for her performance. Very much worth it. Whether she wins it or not, I don't quite know. But I really like this love interest he played in this movie. I also liked how Paul Thomas Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis, since he played this character, really made the whole dressmaking job feel intriguing. I knew a little bit about it before going into this movie. I was just interested enough to be able to see this movie alone just to see how that plays out. But Paul Thomas Anderson, since he wrote this film as well, he really made it look intriguing and sound intriguing and kind of what dressmakers do to kind of go through the process of this, what kind of colors work for certain girls, if they're tall, if they're short, what kind of occasion is this. Certain occasions mean certain colors, certain looks. I really liked how intriguing they made the whole dressmaking process, how interesting they made it feel in this movie. There's also tons of beautiful sets and a beautiful film color palette in this movie. It's not a very dark movie, so if you're used to watching like Christopher Nolan or Zack Snyder or like kind of those more gloomier color kind of movies, thankfully Phantom Thread is not in that category. It's much more colorful in its color palette. The sets are beautiful, the dresses are beautiful. Whenever somebody's wearing a very brightly colored dress or you're in a very brightly colored home, the color palette of this film is just leaping off the screen. So I love the beautiful look and the beautiful feel of this movie. I also like the fitting time period musical score that went with this movie. I think Paul Thomas Anderson hires the same guy for all his movies for the musical score. I think it's a guy who works for Radiohead, the band. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I heard that somewhere. Whatever he did to make the musical score work for this film, it really does work for it very well. It does feel like it fits this time period that they're going for. It really does feel like a hardworking dressmaker at work during this time period. So whatever they did for the musical score, very, very fitting for this movie. But for my negatives of Phantom Thread and why I don't think it's probably Paul Thomas Anderson's better films, is I thought the second half was very slow moving. It really, the first half had a much more nicer pace to it. The second half is really, really slow. It really does kind of take a long time to make its point in the second half. It definitely makes its point, but it just takes such a long time to get there. And once you realize kind of the point that the film is making, it just really leisurely moves to that point and really doesn't take it doesn't really match up the pacing that it had from the earlier half of the movie. So I thought that could have been better. There's also some strange, surreal imagery that you see throughout this movie that really kind of doesn't work for this film. It's a very much a real-time, set in reality kind of film. So on moments where Daniel Day-Lewis thinks he's looking at somebody who's dead and someone's standing in the room with him, or he feels like he's looking at something that's not really there, it doesn't really work for this movie. I understand the point Paul Thomas Anderson's going for. He's trying to make it look like he really is kind of hallucinating those images. But for me personally, I thought for this film, it didn't really work. Maybe for The Master or Inherent Vice, it would have worked fine for those. I thought for this film, it really didn't work that well. So some of the strange, surreal imagery doesn't quite work with the tone of this movie. I also thought there were some moments that really offered very little to the plot of this film. They're just kind of small little moments where Daniel Day-Lewis is mad about something or happy about something, or there's something going on with Vicky Krieps or Daniel Day-Lewis's mom. There's just some moments in this film that really don't offer anything to the plot. They're just kind of there to be there. So I guess that being said, I think a good 15-20 minutes of some of that unnecessary footage trimmed out of this movie would have already made it better and possibly could have made the second half run faster than it was going for. So I thought that could have been improved too in this movie. But for my overall thoughts of Phantom Thread, very good movie. Like I said, I like how Paul Thomas Anderson continues to work on film and isn't going digital quite yet. There's tons of things I really like about it. I really liked how they made the dressmaking job really feel intriguing in this, but a very slow second half, tons of surreal imagery that doesn't work for this movie, and just some moments that really don't offer a lot to the plot. But I am going to give Phantom Thread an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very good movie. I highly recommend it. Like I said, it's not Paul Thomas Anderson's best film, but I think it's a very good film that he can add to his resume that a lot of his fans, I think, are going to be very happy with. And like I said, if you're intrigued by this whole dressmaking process, I think Phantom Thread's going to offer just enough for you to be really intrigued by it. So I was really intrigued by it. So 8.5 out of 10. I do recommend this movie, but go in knowing that it's not Paul Thomas Anderson's best film.